7 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
Aladdin wasn't just Disney's daring leap into Arabian Nights fantasy. It was a firestorm of rewrites, casting chaos, animation experiments, and backstage battles that nearly tore the production apart. What audiences see as a smooth, magical ride was actually built on sleepless nights, bitter disputes, and shocking creative risks. Today, we're revealing 20 weird facts about Aladdin, 1992, the film that almost didn't happen the way you remember it. From Robin Williams' furious fallout with Disney, to hidden adult jokes slipped past censors, to animation tricks that defied Disney tradition. Buckle up. We'll start at number 20 and work our way down to the most jaw-dropping bonus fact. You won't see this one coming. Let's dive in. Number 20. Aladdin originally looked totally different. When animators first designed Aladdin, he didn't look like the charming street-smart rogue we know. In fact, the earliest drafts modeled him after actor Michael J. Fox. Boyish, innocent, even a little dorky. Jeffrey Katzenberg, then head of Disney Studios, hated it. He told the team to make Aladdin more Tom Cruise, less geek. Animators bulked up his shoulders, sharpened his jawline, and made him older. But this makeover created a strange problem. His mother. Originally, Aladdin's mom was a key character, grounding him emotionally. But when the hero became older and cooler, Katzenberg demanded her removal, declaring he doesn't need a mom slowing him down. The result? A leaner film, but one that lost its original family-centered tone. For years, fans wondered why Aladdin never mentioned parents, because Disney cut her completely. It wasn't an oversight. It was a studio order that reshaped the film's DNA. Number 19. Robin Williams got paid peanuts. Robin Williams's genie feels larger than life, but Disney paid him almost nothing. Williams accepted just $75,000 for the role, tiny compared to the film's billion-dollar empire. Why? He agreed as a favor, hoping his kids could enjoy his performance. But Williams had one demand: don't use his genie voice to sell merchandise. Disney broke that deal almost instantly, plastering Genie on ads, toys, and promotions. Williams felt betrayed. He later told reporters, "You realize now when you work for Disney, you're working for a mouse." The fallout grew so bitter that Williams refused to work with Disney again, until years later when the studio publicly apologized and gave him a Picasso painting as a peace offering. It wasn't about money, it was about trust. And for a time, the genie's magic left a bitter taste behind the curtain. Number 18. The film nearly got an X rating. Believe it or not, censors were alarmed by Aladdin. One line in particular sparked outrage. During the rooftop scene, Aladdin's suitor Raja growls at a street vendor. In the original audio mix, some parents claimed they heard the phrase, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." Disney panicked. Was this a secret joke by animators? Or a badly mixed line? The truth, the line was meant to be, "Good kitty, take off and go." But the slurred sound made it infamous. News outlets pounced, angry parents protested, and religious groups threatened boycotts. Disney quickly redubbed the line for later VHS and DVD releases. But the damage was done. The rumor of a hidden sex joke clung to Aladdin for decades, joining the infamous list of Disney adult Easter eggs that scandalized families and delighted conspiracy theorists. Number 17. The animators hid famous cameos. The genie's manic transformations weren't random improvisations. Animators stuffed in hidden celebrity cameos as visual gags. Watch closely. You'll see Robin Williams morph into Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jack Nicholson, Groucho Marx, and even Ed Sullivan. But the weirdest cameo? At one point, Genie pulls out Sebastian the Crab from The Little Mermaid. This wasn't a throwaway joke. It was Disney's sly way of building a shared animated universe years before Pixar perfected the Easter egg strategy. Even more bizarre, early storyboards had Genie transform into John Wayne and Elvis Presley, but Disney feared it would feel too American for a Middle Eastern fairy tale. The cameos became a lightning rod. Audiences laughed, but critics accused the film of being too modern, stripping away timelessness for cheap laughs. That push-pull between classic myth and 90s pop culture defined Aladdin's unique, chaotic identity. Number 16. A Whole New World almost didn't happen. It's hard to imagine Aladdin without a whole new world, but Disney nearly scrapped it. Songwriters Alan Menken and Howard Ashman had originally planned a very different soundtrack. Ashman, who was dying of AIDS during production, pushed for darker, Broadway-style numbers that leaned into Aladdin's struggles, but studio execs wanted romance and spectacle. When Ashman passed, Tim Rice stepped in, penning A Whole New World with Menken. At first, Katzenberg thought the soaring duet was too sappy and nearly cut it in favor of a flashier genie song. Luckily, test screenings proved him wrong. The song went on to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song, beating Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. It wasn't just a hit, it became Disney's first ever Billboard #1 single. What almost got deleted became the anthem of an era. Number 15. The Sultan's animation came from a very strange source. The bumbling Sultan, with his toy-obsessed personality and round frame, didn't emerge from thin air. Animators based him on a pet dog. Lead animator Dale Bear admitted that the Sultan's mannerisms, rolling on the floor, clapping his hands, bouncing in excitement, were modeled on his own tiny poot. But the dog's influence didn't stop there. Early designs gave Sultan floppy ears and stubby movements that looked more canine than royal. Disney executives initially balked, saying he looks like a puppy in a crown. But animators pushed back, arguing that the Sultan's softness was needed to contrast Jafar's sinister presence. What audiences didn't know was that beneath the turban and jewels, Sultan's DNA was pure cartoon canine. It gave him warmth, yes, but also undercut his dignity, a deliberate choice to highlight how easily Jafar manipulated him. The Sultan wasn't just a king, he was a puppy on a leash, and that was exactly the point. Number 14. Jafar's voice actor was nearly fired. Jonathan Freeman delivered one of Disney's most chilling villains as Jafar, but his survival on the project was anything but certain. At first, Katzenberg hated his performance, calling it too stagey, too Broadway. Animators disagreed, insisting that Freeman's theatrical delivery gave Jafar a Shakespearean menace. Tensions escalated so badly that Freeman was briefly told his role might be recast. Disney even tested a few other voices, including Tim Curry, who reportedly scared test audiences too much. In the end, animators won the battle, arguing that Freeman's elongated vowels and sly pauses gave them the perfect blueprint to exaggerate Jafar's movements. Ironically, Freeman's so-called stagey delivery is now what fans remember most. The villain wasn't loud or manic. He was slow, deliberate, dripping with poison. The near-firing only reinforced how split Disney was during Aladdin's production. Executives wanted something mainstream, while artists fought for theatrical boldness. Number 13. Gilbert Gottfried nearly walked out. Iago, Jafar's sarcastic parrot sidekick, is unforgettable thanks to Gilbert Gottfried's shrieking delivery. But Gottfried almost quit after his first recording session. Why? Disney initially demanded he tone it down. Executives told him, "Make him less annoying." Gottfried, furious, shot back, "That's the whole point. He's supposed to drive you crazy." The standoff nearly ended with Gottfried walking away from the film. Animators sided with him, reshaping Iago into a truly obnoxious, high-strung foil whose constant squawking mirrored Jafar's frustration. The gamble worked. Iago became a fan favorite, and even headlined spin-offs and sequels. What audiences didn't know was that his existence hinged on one actor's refusal to compromise. Not loud, but shrill. Not cute, but grating. That was Gottfried's hill to die on, and it made Iago one of Disney's most distinct comic villains. Number 12. Animators secretly rebelled against Disney's demands. By the early 1990s, Disney Animation was under strict corporate control, but Aladdin's team grew rebellious. When Katzenberg cut Aladdin's mother, several animators revolted by sneaking subtle nods to her into the film. One background features a faint embroidery pattern reading "Mom," visible only for a few frames. Others gave Aladdin fleeting expressions of loneliness that weren't in the script. Storyboard artists even joked about Ghost Mom appearing in rough sketches. These were acts of protest, tiny ways to preserve the original vision. Executives never caught most of them, but fans later uncovered evidence in the film's archives. It wasn't just hidden Easter eggs. It was defiance. The finished Aladdin sparkled with genie jokes and romantic spectacle, but under the surface, frustrated animators had buried their fingerprints everywhere. Not everything got erased. Some secrets lived on in the margins. Number 11. The film was slammed for racism, even by its own staff. Not long after its release, Aladdin drew fire for racial stereotypes. The opening song, Arabian Nights, originally described the Middle East as a land where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. Arab American groups called it racist, and Disney quietly changed the lyric for later releases. But the criticism didn't stop there. Scholars pointed out that while heroes like Aladdin and Jasmine looked more Western, with lighter skin and American accents, villains like Jafar had exaggerated Middle Eastern features and accents. Even some Disney staff admitted discomfort. Animator Glenn Keane later said, "We were towing a dangerous line." The controversy forced Disney to face scrutiny it hadn't encountered since Song of the South. Aladdin may have been a box office smash, but it also sparked conversations about representation that haunt its legacy today. Number 10. Robin Williams. Recorded hours of improvised material. Robin Williams didn't just read lines. He unleashed chaos. In the sound booth, he improvised for hours, riffing in a dozen voices, leaping between Shakespearean monologues and stand-up routines. Animators were left with nearly 16 hours of wild recordings, far more than they could ever use. The dailies became so unpredictable that editors joked they needed a genie of their own just to sort through it. Williams's improvisations were so manic that Disney worried the movie might lose its structure entirely. But those unscripted tangents birthed Genie's most beloved moments: his Jack Nicholson impression, his be-yourself routine, his celebrity parodies. It wasn't a planned performance. It was Williams unchained. The studio even had to alter the film's rating request, since the Motion Picture Academy argued the level of improvisation technically made Genie ineligible for a Best Supporting Actor nod. It was groundbreaking, and it changed how animated voice acting was seen forever. And before we move on, go ahead and like and subscribe, because just like Genie's endless improvisations, there are still plenty more surprises coming your way. Number 9. Aladdin's character was based on a 1930s movie star when animators redesigned Aladdin from boy next door into street-smart heartthrob. They didn't just guess. They looked back to Hollywood's golden age. Specifically, they modeled him after Douglas Fairbanks Sr., the swashbuckling actor from classics like The Thief of Baghdad. Fairbanks's athletic stunts, cocky grin, and romantic charm became the template. Even Aladdin's rooftop leaps and daring acrobatics mimic Fairbanks' silent-era stunts. But there's another twist. Jasmine's look was partially inspired by Fairbanks' co-star in The Thief of Baghdad. In essence, Aladdin borrowed its DNA from an earlier Hollywood fantasy epic. What audiences didn't know was that Disney's new hero was actually a reimagining of an old-school adventurer, not a fresh invention, but a cinematic echo. And it gave Aladdin that timeless swagger, bridging the magic of silent film spectacle with the flash of 1990s animation. Number 8. The Magic Carpet was the hardest character to animate. It sounds simple, a flying carpet with no face, no voice, no arms. But animators discovered it was one of the hardest characters in the film. The carpet had to show emotion using only tassels and movement. Glenn Keane and his team painstakingly studied mime performances, trying to capture feelings with body language alone. Every swoop, every curl, every jitter became a form of acting. The result? Audiences felt the carpet's loyalty and playfulness as strongly as any human character. But behind the scenes, it was brutal. Animators burned through call sheets and late-night sessions, refining gestures until they worked. They even joked that Carpet was the best actor with no SAG card. What looks effortless on screen was the product of exhausting silent experimentation. Carpet wasn't just fabric, it was a full character built from motion alone. Number 7. Jasmine was a late rewrite. In early drafts, Jasmine was barely a character. She existed only as the object of Aladdin's affection. Story meetings grew tense as female staffers criticized the script, warning that Jasmine was too passive. Disney scrambled. They rewrote her to be more independent, demanding the freedom to choose her own husband. Even her famous line, "I am not a prize to be won," was added late as a response to feminist criticism. Linda Larkin, Jasmine's voice actress, later admitted she worried her voice was too soft to carry such strength, but directors reassured her. What audiences didn't know was that Jasmine nearly became another one-note Disney princess. Not strong, but silent. Not free, but trapped. It took rewrites, debates, and late production changes to give her bite. That single line transformed Jasmine from a background figure into a feminist touchstone for a new generation of Disney fans. Number 6. Animators used Las Vegas as inspiration for Agrabah. Agrabah wasn't pulled from authentic Middle Eastern architecture. Instead, animators borrowed heavily from Las Vegas. They studied the exaggerated domes, neon lights, and casino-style palaces of the Strip, mixing them with Arabian design. The goal was spectacle, not realism. The city's golden spires and impossible skyline were meant to dazzle like a magic trick. Gaudy, surreal, intoxicating. But this choice also fueled the film's cultural criticism. Scholars argued that Agrabah looked more like Orientalist fantasy than history, a mashup of cliches designed to sell exoticism. Animators admitted as much, calling it Disney's Vegas in the desert. That's why Agrabah feels both ancient and weirdly modern, because it's rooted as much in American excess as it is in Arabian tales. The city wasn't history, it was illusion. And in that illusion, Aladdin found its shimmering, controversial world. Number 5. The genie nearly looked terrifying. Before Robin Williams's improvisation shaped Genie into a whirlwind of comedy, early designs made him intimidating. Storyboard artists initially drew him as a towering, otherworldly figure, blue skin, glowing eyes, sharp angles, closer to a horror monster than a sidekick. Disney executives worried he would scare children, so animator Eric Goldberg pushed for a radical shift. He studied caricature artists and 1930s jazz cartoons, giving Genie a fluid, rubbery body and zany expressions. Williams's voice then sealed the transformation. But traces of the original scary Genie remain. His first appearance in The Lamp, with huge shadows and ominous smoke, echoes those darker drafts. What audiences didn't know is that Genie's laughter was almost a scream. He wasn't born funny. He was sculpted into it. Without that redesign, Aladdin might have introduced one of Disney's most frightening figures instead of its most beloved comic creation. Number 4. The film's schedule nearly broke the animators. Aladdin came out just 1 year after Beauty and the Beast, a brutal timeline. Disney forced overlapping production schedules, which meant animators had to race against the clock. Staff described 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, with some artists collapsing at their desks. Call sheets piled up faster than scenes could be finished. In desperation, directors Ron Clements and John Musker cut entire subplots, including Aladdin's mother, and additional Genie routines, just to meet the deadline. Animators later admitted the pace left them exhausted, with morale collapsing. Yet somehow, the chaos produced a sleek, energetic film that felt effortless. What audiences didn't see was the human toll, burnout, tension, and artists working themselves past their limits. Not a magical ride, but a grind. Not smooth flying, but turbulence all the way down. The magic lamp may have granted wishes, but it didn't grant rest. Number 3. The voice of Aladdin was nearly recast, mid-production. Scott Weinger, best known from Full House, provided Aladdin's speaking voice. But executives grew nervous. They felt his delivery lacked charm and considered replacing him with another young star. Behind the scenes, auditions were held in secret. Matthew Broderick was even floated as an option. But animators had already drawn thousands of frames synced to Weinger's voice. Changing actors would mean redoing entire sequences. Ultimately, directors decided to keep him while hiring Broadway singer Brad Kane to handle Aladdin's singing parts. This split voice created a seamless illusion on screen, but behind it was a near disaster. Not a single confident casting. A patchwork compromise. And yet, it worked. Weinger's youthful, nervous charm matched Kane's soaring vocals so well that audiences never noticed the switch. What looked smooth was really stitched together at the last moment. Number 2, Aladdin sparked a merchandising revolution. Aladdin wasn't just a movie, it was a merchandising tidal wave. Disney flooded stores with genie dolls, magic carpet toys, and even Jasmine-branded makeup. But here's the twist. The frenzy nearly toppled the company's relationship with Robin Williams. His contract explicitly forbade Disney from using Genie's likeness in ads. When they broke it, the scandal made headlines. But financially, the strategy worked. By 1994, Aladdin merchandise had generated billions, yes, billions, with Genie leading the charge. This success reshaped how Disney approached every film afterward, from The Lion King to Frozen. Movies weren't just box office events anymore, they were launch pads for global product lines. What audiences didn't realize was that Aladdin wasn't simply a hit, it was a corporate experiment, and it permanently rewrote the rules of Hollywood marketing. Number 1. The film was almost shelved entirely. Here's the ultimate twist. At one point, Disney nearly scrapped Aladdin altogether. In 1991, a test screening bombed. Viewers found Aladdin unlikable, the pacing clunky, and the songs too heavy. Jeffrey Katzenberg was furious. He reportedly stormed into a meeting and told the directors, "You've got to throw half of this out." In 4 frantic months, the team rewrote the script, redesigned Aladdin, cut his mom, and reshaped Genie around Robin Williams' voice. It was a total overhaul, what animators later called a story apocalypse. The movie that reached theaters was almost completely different from the version Disney had in hand a year earlier. Not a smooth production, but a collapse and rebirth. Without that crisis, Aladdin as we know it would never exist. The magic lamp was nearly smashed before anyone rubbed it. Bonus fact, a secret Robin Williams recording is locked away. The wildest secret of all? Disney still holds hours of unreleased Robin Williams recordings as Genie, riffs so outrageous, so adult, they could never be used in a family film. Williams once joked, "There's enough outtakes to make Genie the R-rated cut." According to insiders, Disney's lawyers even placed restrictions on these recordings, banning their release for decades. Fans have never heard them and maybe never will. The idea of a raw, uncensored Genie swearing, riffing on politics, and tearing through celebrity impressions remains locked in the vault. It's the hidden side of Aladdin, the one that could never be shown. The laughter we know is just a fraction of what Williams gave. Somewhere, buried deep in Disney's archives, Genie still lives on in his wildest unchained form. Aladdin wasn't just a Disney fairy tale. It was a battlefield of clashing visions, backroom betrayals, cultural controversies, and once-in-a-lifetime performances. Behind the dazzling palace walls was sweat, conflict, and chaos. Yet out of that storm came a film that defined a generation and proved that even in the messiest productions, magic can still fly. If you learned something new today, hit that like button, subscribe for more behind-the-scenes secrets, and remember, just like the Genie, stories like these live on long after the credits roll.